go live to Ukraine and Joseph Lindsley, and hopefully no air raid alarms going off at the moment. Joe, what's happening?
Well, Bob, good afternoon from Kharkiv. Actually, through the night, it was the first night in a long time when there were not many alarms. There were in some places in southern Ukraine. Here in Kharkiv, though, we had a period of quiet from about 1:30 in the morning until about 10 o'clock when we had an air alarm at that point. And then, but no strikes here. And, it's, of course, at the front lines, it's always hellish as Ukrainians are pushing back against the Russians and dealing with the minefields and Russian artillery. It's always hellish there, but it was fairly quiet in cities away from the front lines. And then just about almost 2 hours ago, the air raid alarm started to go off throughout Ukraine, including in the far west in Lviv. And once again, you go through this sort of roller coaster. Everyone is watching the news of which direction the Russian missiles are going. Lately, the Russians have often been simulating missile launches, just as I've mentioned before, to confuse the air defense system and to stress people out. But this was an actual series of missiles that were launched. And at first they were going maybe about an hour ago. They were headed toward Kyiv, but then they changed course and they went to central city of Vinnytsia and then to sort of a midwestern city of Zhytomyr. In both of those regions, Ukrainian air defense was activated. And then not long after that, maybe about 30 minutes ago, everyone began to receive the all clear alerts. And so it seemed like it was going to be a bigger attack than it was, but it was a stressful afternoon for many people. The air defense has worked, and currently we have indications there could be as many as 14 of the Russians, that's an extraordinary number, 14 of the Russian strategic bombers in the air. So there's no air alarms in most of the country now, but there still is a little bit of anxiety about what is cooking today. We also have reports that, we heard there was big headlines leading up to the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, about the United States giving cluster munitions to Ukraine. And now we know that those munitions have arrived here. The Biden administration said, I guess, quite frankly, the administration said that's, Ukraine was running out of ammunition, and so they had to give these munitions. But in all those stories leading up to the NATO summit, they call, whether it's Reuters or the BBC, everyone called cluster munitions controversial. And as I mentioned before, the Russian cluster munitions are older and not very reliable. And often after the bomb hits the ground, by design, when the bomb hits the ground, little baby bombs then sort of bounce and hit a wider territory. With the Russian munitions, their dud rate is pretty bad. And so some of those munitions can can linger for days or years. And so that was the concern about cluster munitions. But if you look closely at these American-made munitions that Ukrainians are using now in the counteroffensive, their dud rate is less than 1%. They're specifically designed there's 3 levels of backup, and the third is a timer to make sure that these munitions do deploy, within, like the same day that they are deployed. And so they're much, they're meant to kill, but they're much safer in the long run. And it's an important difference. And it seems like it is, everyone's hoping that will help, make some small difference for the Ukrainians. And, as we think about munitions that are left in the ground for a while, and I went to that demining training camp last week, and, it could be, for some of these mines, it could be centuries before they're totally eradicated because they're so hard to find, and you need such well-trained crews. So that is, of course, a major concern. And then meanwhile, while we're talking about, like sort of the micro ammunition level, there still is no firm commitment on a timeline for F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. In fact, a lot of people now, experts are now estimating that these F-16s from the United States and other countries will not be here until the spring of 2024. As you sit here like on an afternoon of anxiety today with, watching the missiles fly to and fro throughout the country, hearing all the stories of the intense battles in the trenches where Ukrainians do not have air superiority in the south. When you hear spring 2024, that does sound a bit discouraging from the West.
How do you keep yourself upbeat? How do the people deal with that, Joseph?
I think there's this underlying resolve. Again, the Ukrainian word for freedom, volia, which means will to freedom. That's the underlying thing, and I think everyone sort of takes that for granted. But people, really every day, people are bucking each other up. It's very different in different cities. Like if you're in Lviv, there's music in the streets, and it's a very different culture there. That sort of keeps you going. Same with Odessa, that city of jokes, but also of music. Kharkiv is different, and I think what keeps people going here is that they've already been through so much, and everywhere I go in the city, like today on my morning run at about 6 o'clock in the morning, because I finally got to sleep with a night with not too many alarms, and I'm running through the beautiful city garden, and it's a really spectacular place. And then a few blocks later, I'm running through ruins, and it was so windy that glass was blowing from the ruined buildings. And this is right in the center of the city. And I looked to my left, and there was a building where in the basement had been the old Hemingway pub, where I drank Guinness in late January 2022, not long before the Russian full-scale invasion. And so everywhere you see these reminders of the hell that people went through. And as I talk with people here, people have been recounting what it was like that first day when sort of like the dream of a good life came to an end. But it's, almost everyone I know here can tell me stories about seeing missiles hit and artillery hit 1 block from them and figuring out which way they're going to run. And so they've been toughened by that, and they've survived all that. And so even as I was going by the ruined old Hemingway pub, which was in the basement of that building, there was a mother and her child walking out early in the morning, and they were laughing and smiling. And so there is, that's, and I think every time someone chooses to be positive in these moments, that actually helps other people in turn get sort of that positive strength.
Sure.
That's the only way. It's people working together.
Well, just know that we regularly get calls and messages praising your reports. People still very interested, and wherever I go, folks mention our talks here, and they're with you. Hopefully that makes you feel a little better, and we'll talk tomorrow, Joseph. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you, Bob. Until tomorrow.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що він сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?